very cleverly, you can embed lookup formulas inside other lookup formulas, giving you the ability to do a double lookup effectively along both the X, so the vertical column, and the Y axis, therefore the column headings that we're currently picking. Let's take the file Stock Data International, which is effectively an international version of our template order form. What we've added now is the ability to add a country code here and the country name here, and these will be drawn from the country sheet. Now in the items, we now have a UK sale price, a US sale price, and a world sale price. So the jobs at the moment are firstly to allow us to type a code in here for the country. So we might type in US. And the first thing I would like you to do is then pull in the full country name into this box here using a straightforward HLOOKUP. Step number 1 is to make sure that our country data is in a named range. So let's Control A to highlight all the country data and then give that a name, country. Couldn't be any more sensible than that really. And then back here we can go ahead with our VLOOKUP of the country code against the country data, bringing back column 5 if I recall, but it must be an exact match. So it must find US in that list. And it returns the name of the country as United States. Just as a check, let's put UK and it brings back not applicable because UK is actually GB internationally, and that brings back United Kingdom. So the 2-letter lookup works. Let's try IT for Italy. Excellent. Back to US. Now in order to proceed, we'll find we already have the lookups in place for the description and the weight because they're not affected by the fact that we're going to a different country, but the unit cost is. So in here, I want to be able to look up the item ID in our items data. So from within our item data, I need to decide whether to pick up column 3, column 4, or column 5 based on the country. Now in the country data, we've cleverly added a third column here called column, and that gives us the column number that we want to pick from the first table. So every single country is column 5 for the world, except GB, which is column 3 for the UK price, and US, which is column 4 for the US price. Let's change that to a 4. But every other country is classed as somewhere else in the world. Hopefully, you could see the mechanics here that you could actually have zones of the world at different prices and just give them a different column reference and then another column with the price and the items data. Well, let's see it in action. So for our first item, we need to do a VLOOKUP of the item ID against the stock data. There's our named range. Then we need to know which column to bring back. Well, in order to decide which column to bring back, we need to do a VLOOKUP of the country code against the countries. And from the country code, bring back column 3, because that contains the number of the column that we wish from the stock table. That also must be a false for an exact match. It must find that country in the country table. Comma, we're then back to the outer VLOOKUP, and that must be a false so that it finds the stock ID in the stock table. Let's see if that works. 629. So this item, if sold to the US, sells at 629. If we change the country to UK, you see that the price goes to not applicable because the country is not applicable because I haven't used the correct country code, which is GB, and the price goes up to 692. If I sell to anywhere else in the world, for example Italy, the price goes up even more to 894. So let's sell back to the US. So this formula can now be replicated. However, it doesn't have any of the troubleshooting, the checking for NAs. So I need to add that in. Equals if is NA effectively the whole of that. So let's copy. If the whole of that returns is NA, then the unit cost is 0. Else we carry out and do the VLOOKUP. Close bracket for my if. Close bracket there for the is NA. That's the beauty of Excel color coding. I immediately spotted that we hadn't closed the red bracket for the is NA. So that would need closing before you do the comma for the true action. Then go ahead and execute the false action, and then you see we then have a black bracket to match the black bracket for the if. That will be happy. 629. If I go and choose a country that doesn't exist, like the UK, then it produces a 0. So you're covered against mistyping in really more than anything. GB produces a result. I'm ready to replicate this formula, except for the fact that the lookup there of the country column does not want to change relatively. It still needs to keep looking up here at C4. So that would need to be made absolute, as would that C4 there. It's in twice because it's once within the is NA formula and then once within the lookup itself. Same result, but what you'll find is we can now replicate that down to the bottom of our order form. And when there's no applicable lookup, we get 0. And when there is, it works. So these are all the GB prices. If I change to US, all the prices of all those items will change. If I change to any other country, they will change again, much higher in fact. So that's a double lookup, a nested lookup, where we use one lookup to identify the column to then look up in the outer lookup. Exciting use, and you can see there is the possibility there of nesting even further down, should it be applicable.